Hi everyone, it's Matt from Greatness Everyday, and today we're going to be talking about the difference between an asset and a liability and how you can use that to use your money better. So if you like videos related to living your greatest life through personal development, health, and wealth, that's what I'm here for. Why not go down and click the subscribe button? I'd really appreciate it. But let's get into today's video topic. And the idea of an asset and a liability was first introduced to me as I was going through the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. As I read that, I wanted to know more about assets and liabilities, so I did go in and do some further research, but I really like how Robert Kiyosaki defines those two things. So he says that an asset essentially is anything that puts money into your pocket, and on the other hand, a liability here is anything that takes money out of your pocket. So there's a really very clear difference as you look at those two things. An asset is something that gives you money, something that you can either invest in or buy or purchase or partner with. And a liability is something that is taking money away from you. It's sucking the money out of you or out of your business or whatever. So we're going to look at some examples of what those two things are, an asset and a liability, so that you can really get clear on, in your life, what are the assets and liabilities that you have? What are the assets that you need to add more of or look to increase? What are the liabilities that you are going to take away or get rid of as you're looking at really using your money to better fulfill your purpose? So as we go through these, I also want to say that really some of these things that I'm going to throw up here on the list are things that can maybe fall in the asset category or maybe fall in the liability category. But as a whole, I'm going to represent what most people would think with a financial literate mind would think would be an asset and a liability. And if you disagree about some of these things, let me know down in the comments below and we'll start talking about those. But an asset, a very common asset, is many people say to go out and purchase a house. And I know that some people right away are going to say that's not true to this definition. A house, all it does is suck money out of you. But what happens is hopefully over time, if you buy the right house in the right condition, at the right price, and also in the right area, and obviously so many things go into valuations of a house, you're going to be able to hopefully over time sell that for more money down the road as we go through. For a liability, if we're talking about one of the major things that all of us have to do, we all need a dwelling place. An asset would be a house. Maybe a liability here would be an apartment. Right? You're just putting money away every single month, every single year, and you're not getting anything out of that in the end. So that is a very clear difference between the two, house and apartment, just to name a couple things there to begin. So that is something. A business would be considered an asset. And yes, businesses can cost you money. Businesses can take money away from you. But if you're set up in the right spot, in the right condition, a business is something that you are going to be using and leveraging to create cash flow. And that's really important. One of the ones that I like the most, and really for me, I've gone in deep over the past 2 years with, is investing. So buying things like stocks, buying things like bonds, and other investment opportunities that you can look at pursuing. This is one of the ones that I like the most because the barrier to entry is low, and at the same time there's plenty of good resources out there to help you learn how you can start investing, either by going through and investing yourself in individual stocks, diversifying into things like ETFs, and I really think that stocks and investments, bonds and other things are some of the greatest ways to wealth creation that you can really look at, or just using your money better, obviously given the right circumstances. So that is one. Saving. If you were to put money into a savings account, this would be something that could be considered an asset because you're gaining interest on the return of that. And yes, that interest would have to be adjusted with inflation, and hopefully you're going to be creating more savings than inflation over time, but that can be challenging to do. Regardless, you're putting more money into your bank account if you have a bank account full of a good interest rate. So that is that. Those are a couple things that the basic person would look at as assets. I also want to know what assets would you say should be added to this list, because there are plenty more. There are plenty more, but if I look at me in particular, I'm going to share a little bit about my experience with these things after I show you the liabilities here. So an apartment is something, our dwelling place where we're not going to get anything in the end out of that situation. We're just going to be putting money away, putting money away, putting money away regularly. And as we go through, someone might say just having money in cash could be a liability, because what we're doing there is we've got money in cash. It's not put away in a stored safe spot where we are able to make a return on that. So it's just sitting there. And as the course of inflation happens, right, it's still going to be the same amount. So in some ways that is a liability. I would look at things that we use like a phone. A phone being something that really, I just put money away. I put money away, I put money away, I put money away. In some ways it does not make me money. So I would say utilities like a phone or internet could be considered on that list. Something else like a car. Many people watching this have a car, have 2 cars, have 3 cars. Those are all liabilities, especially something like a car where we're not really making anything in return on the investment of buying a car. In fact, when we drive off the lot, typically you lose something like 10% or whatever. There are other goods that we could throw up on there. We could say expensive watches, we could say boats, we could say whatever we want to add to that list for liabilities. So just for me, as I look at my current situation over the past few months, but also over the past few years, what I have been doing is I have really been trying to go ahead here and increase my assets. So anything that is going to create cash flow for me, how can I increase that? How can I invest in stocks that are going to give me a return on my investments? How can I better use my savings? I've started a business. How can I leverage that to create cash flow? And eventually, I'll be looking at that option. Right now, I'm renting. I've rented for a couple years now, and I've thought about, do I buy a house? Do I not buy a house? And there's so many things to consider when you go ahead and do that. So right now, this housing area, I'd be in the liabilities spot with an apartment. There are ways to use a house as leverage if it's a single dwelling where you live there with your family, or you can go obviously into renting properties out to people, and that's going to create even more cash flow. So that's an opportunity for you as well. In the liabilities column, what I'm trying to do is take all of the liabilities that I have and really decrease these liabilities and really make my assets much, much, much greater than the liabilities in that whole balancing act. So this is a video that hopefully explained to you the difference between assets and liabilities and given you a few examples that you can use to really get clear on where you are using most of your money. Is it more in the asset column? Is it more in the liabilities column? As you work to get good and use your money with purpose. So if you have any questions, let me know. If you disagree about these things, comment below. Let's talk about it. I'd be excited to see what you value in terms of assets and what you think liabilities are. And if this video helped you, please click the thumbs up button, because it helps get this video out to more people. And when we're talking about assets and liabilities, obviously that can help a lot of people. Right now, I'm gonna ask you, go hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed. Appreciate you being here. Remember, choose greatness every day, and I'll see you next time.